All right. So you've heard me talk about the differences between the essentials and the convictions and the preferences. And of course, a lot of your questions were like, how do we sort through some of that stuff and what should be taught from the pulpit, what shouldn't be taught? How does it bleed? How do the preferences at times bleed into the sermons and bleed into the culture of the church? And obviously it kind of all goes back to a little bit of like, well, there seems to be a lot of man's quote unquote influence on something that is supposed to be God-centered or God-inspired or God-empowered, with both church and just the way Christians live. So what do you think about where we've landed in terms of the questions that have been answered and how I've, differentiated between the different things of essentials and convictions and preferences and the way we should respond to those things?
So what comes to mind for me is that if I were to hear my pastor say something like, I don't drink because X, which we talked about.
Right.
Because of X conviction, reason, Bible, whatever.
Right.
That wouldn't bother me.
Okay.
Or do anything to me.
Okay.
But I know that there's people who, when an authority figure says something like that, it means a lot more to them.
Okay.
So during this topic, I'm a little bit struggling to put myself in that headspace because it wouldn't affect me.
Right.
But I do know that happens to people.
Sure.
Like if anybody above me mentions any, like especially the people who are very extremely observant of what people above them are saying and how they're doing and how they think they're doing. Like if I get a hint of, not me, but if those people get a hint of anything wrong with what they're doing, especially from a pastor who's supposed to represent God, then they're going to feel terrible.
Okay.
So what would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah. I
guess this is another question
back to me.
Back to you.
Thanks for answering the question with a question. Yeah. That's actually very...
Anyway, Joseph, that's what I think. What do you think about what I think?
Right. It's a very Jesus thing to do, actually, to answer a question with a question.
And also with you.
Oh, Lord. So I think that again, I said this earlier, I think it really depends on the topic a lot of times. Like, in other words, if I walk out of a service feeling really full of shame because a pastor has said something, and now I'm really bothered because basically he's calling out something. He's calling. I feel like he's calling me out on a way I'm living. Then I think again a big part of it is, all right, is what he's saying, scripture or preference. But then if I'm not sure, because there's sometimes we just don't know, right? You don't know if you don't know what's in scripture, sometimes you don't know if is the pastor actually saying scripture or not. And again, going and talking to the pastor should always be an option.
Okay.
Like talking to a pastor should absolutely always be an option for somebody.
Okay.
They should feel like they can go and talk to their pastor or talk to sometimes churches have elders, or multiple pastors. They should feel like they can go talk to one of them and express their concern. And because I do get the fact, and I do understand the fact that what comes from the pulpit to some people is just really impactful because of the value that they place on the authority of the pastor. And so, and I do understand, there's other people that are like you, they're like, whatever. But I feel like for the individuals that are more sensitive to that, that's why having a relationship with a pastor is good. Like, you should have a relationship with a pastor where you can go up and talk to them and that kind of stuff. Even if you've been going there for a short period of time. Like, if someone is pretty new to our church, I mean, I love it when they come and ask questions. I love it when we sit down and we talk about, hey, how are getting to know the person and that kind of thing, but then allowing them to ask the questions of, I don't really understand why y'all teach on this or emphasize this. I heard this from the pulpit, or maybe it could just be, I heard that you believe this. That happens sometimes too. I've heard that you're like this, them telling me as a pastor that, and then it gives me a chance to say yes or no to those things. And so again, I just feel like that openness from a pastor should be there. And for people who've never had that, like that sense of being able to just go and talk to the pastor, and man, that's like a whole other topic, I feel like, but the pastor's study should be like a safe space for people. They should feel safe there, like to go and ask questions, to go and seek counsel. They should feel safe and they should feel welcomed. That shouldn't be like oh no, like, it shouldn't be like viewed like the principal's office. And I feel like sometimes it is.
It totally is.
Yeah, I mean, and you would probably relate that better than I would because you grew up in the church. Did it feel that way? Like,
well, when my parents weren't at the church and I got in trouble, that's where I always ended up.
Really?
Yeah.
They would take you to the pastor's office.
I mean, sometimes.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I say that's crazy, but I mean, it's happened before to me too. I mean, in other words, people wanting to bring a teenager to me,
right,
for me to have a stern talk to about getting their life right.
Right.
And it's and not that I don't mind having a conversation, but yeah, if it's always viewed as like, that's the place I go when I get in trouble, that's not a good view of the pastor or having any kind of ability to have a healthy conversation with that person. That's
why I was asking all those questions earlier. Like, where you were like, why is it so, why would that be so bad? Well, what if I don't know. It's an authority figure.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right though, that it feels like going to the principal's office.
Yeah. And
a little bit.
Yeah. And I really wish that wasn't the case.
I think class is stupid.
To the principal's office. Yeah. And so I don't know, I don't even know how to combat that in a lot of ways. Because I do think there's a lot of people who feel that way. And I guess, and I'd be interested to even it's kind of even makes me like want to poll our church. How do they feel about coming to me or coming to, because many times it's not just the person, it's just like it's embedded in their minds of the role of the pastor is this.
Or the aura.
Yeah. So it's like
good vibes only.
Yeah. So it's like, even so I've been at the church for like a year, like, I don't know. So, but if you've had pastors for 30 years, 50 years, then all of a sudden you've got a perspective of what a pastor is. And, and that would be pretty hard to change over time. And I think it can change more quickly for some than others. Some just simply need to be seen and viewed and heard. And actually, like, I remember I had someone tell me just within this last year, they said, you're the first pastor I've actually laughed with.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal to that person. And because they felt like they could relate to me, not just in this I am holier than thou kind of thing, but they could laugh, that we could laugh together, and I love that. And so, but like for that person, it happened pretty quickly just because I would sit and talk and laugh with them and cut up. But for others, I can tell when I sit with them, they kind of, get a little stiff and not sure what to say. And so, and that doesn't come from just me, right? That just comes from their experience and encounter with pastors over the course of their life, or what they expect a pastor to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would hope that over time that can be changed. But I do know that's I'm actually interested. We talked about this. That's a good. Makes me want to rethink about how our people even see me. So,
well, good.
I
thought we were gonna laugh together.